Good morning, all. Today we are discussing about one of the special sensory organs, the eyeball. So, this video describes the three layers of the eyeball as well as other features of it. When we look into the eyes of a person, what we can see is the whitish area which is present more towards laterally and a centrally placed blackish color. So, what is this whitish area? The whitish part is nothing but the sclera, and the blackish area is the iris. The feature of the iris is having a centrally placed cavity or an opening, and this opening is called pupil. So, if you are moving to the layers of eyeball, in lower classes you must have studied that eyeball consists of three layers: sclera, choroid, and retina, is it? But now we have to update something more in the layers of eyeball. We can say eyeball consists of three layers, obviously, but these three layers are outer fibrous cord, middle vascular cord, and inner nervous cord. The outer fibrous cord is composed of, or it is made of, two parts: sclera and cornea. Middle vascular cord is made of three parts, or the components of the middle vascular layer is constituting the choroid, ciliary body, and iris. Inner nervous layer is the retina. So, while we see the different parts of eyeball, we can see the sclera and the cornea. So, when we see this spherical eyeball, the sclera is forming the posterior 5/6 portion of the whole eyeball, and only just 1/6 part anteriorly forms the cornea. So, major part is made by sclera, that is forming the posterior 5/6 portion of the eyeball, and this is sclera. Then anteriorly only 1/6 portion is replaced by the cornea. When we move to the next slide, we can see the features of sclera. Here the sclera is white, it is thick, it is opaque, it is insensitive to light, and that is giving the shape of the eyeball because it is thick. It is not having an even thickness throughout its surface, because the sclera is thick posteriorly. From here till this area it is thicker. Then anterior to this, the sclera is thin because of the attachment of rectus muscles of the eyeball. Again, it is very weak at the exit of optic nerve. So, here in this picture, you can see this optic nerve which is formed as a continuation, or it is arising from the retinal layer. So, when this optic nerve is formed from the retina, it has to cross the choroid as well as sclera. So, it is obviously piercing the sclera and is making many perforations on the sclera, and at that level where the optic nerve is exiting out, this sclera is pierced by the fibers of the optic nerve, and here the sclera looks like a sieve or a screener. That area is the weakest part, and that sieve-like part of the sclera is called lamina cribrosa. In here, this is a first layer, a fibrous cord, the green color showing the sclera, and this black color shows cornea. This is showing the sieve-like part of the sclera. All these perforations are made by each fibers of the optic nerve. So, this is the lamina cribrosa. This picture shows the attachment of rectus muscles, the eyeball muscles which is attached to the sclera. So, at the level of attachment, the sclera is thinnest. So, the sclera is not in even thickness throughout its areas because it is thickest posteriorly, thin towards the anterior part where the rectus muscles are attached, and it is very weak at the entrance of this optic nerve. Then sclerocorneal junction. Sclerocorneal junction is the junction between cornea and the sclera. This is the sclera, this is cornea. At the junction between these two, this junction is called the sclerocorneal junction, and this junction consists of a canal. Can you see a blue colored canal there? That canal is called canal of Schlemm. So, canal of Schlemm is for drainage of aqueous humor which is filled in the anterior chamber. The sclera is covered on the outer surface by the conjunctiva, but in the inner surface it is in contact with the choroid, that is a second layer, choroid, but it is loosely attached with the choroid and has a space or a space which is filled with the connective tissue called the suprachoroidal lamina. That means to the inner surface, the sclera is not firmly attached to the choroid. The sclera is pierced by optic nerve, ciliary nerves and vessels. Now we can move to the anterior 1/6 portion of the eyeball, that is a cornea. Cornea is entirely different from the sclera because cornea is very transparent. The cornea is avascular, there is no blood vessel in the cornea, and which is nourished by the lymph. It is supplied by the ophthalmic nerve, so it is sensitive, and pain is the one and only sensation arising from the cornea. Then it allows the light rays to pass through, and it is separated from the iris by anterior chamber. It is more convex than the sclera, and this convexity obviously diminishes with age. Here in this picture we can see the cornea which is transparent. It is allowing the light rays through it, it allows the light rays to pass through it, and this cornea is separated from the lens by iris. This is the anterior chamber, and this cornea is supplied by ophthalmic nerve. So, we know this when we try to touch the cornea, we don't feel we are touching the cornea, but we feel a sensation, a pain sensation. So, pain is the only sensation which is rising from this. Then we can move to the middle vascular cord. Middle vascular cord consists of three parts: the choroid, ciliary body and iris. The three components of vascular cord are together called vivial tract. Here you can see the three parts. This is the iris, this is ciliary body, and this is the choroid. Again, here this is the iris, this is the ciliary body, and this is choroid. So, when this choroid, as you see in the structure, it is very thin but highly vascular. It is a thin structure but highly vascular. It is separated from the sclera by suprachoroidal lamina, but the inner surface, to the inner surface of the choroid, this choroid is firmly connected with the retina. The choroid is anteriorly continuous with the ciliary body. This is the ciliary body. It is thicker when compared to the choroid, and this is also highly vascular. But when moved to the choroid, the ciliary body, what happened is the ciliary body is thick and it is triangular in section. It has a muscle called ciliaris muscle. It has several finger-like process called the ciliaris process. Ciliaris process gives attachment for a ligament called suspensory ligament, which is suspending or it is keeping the lens in position. The contraction of the ciliaris muscle relaxes the suspensory ligament and resulted in increased anterior convexity of the lens. You listen to this picture. Here you can see the ciliary body very clearly. The ciliary body has numerous projections, finger-like foldings, finger-like projections. These foldings are called as ciliaris process. See the tip of this ciliaris process, you can see a ligament which is stretching from this to the lens. These ligaments are called suspensory ligaments. So, suspensory ligaments are keeping the lens in position, and also it is doing one more function, because the body of the ciliary body consists of a muscle, and this muscle is called ciliaris muscle. So, what happened is when ciliaris muscle contracts, the ciliaris muscle when contracts, it causes the loosening of the suspensory ligament. So, if this is a ciliaris muscle, the muscle is always contracting towards the origin, is it? So, here is the origin, here is the insertion. When the ciliaris muscle contracts, this muscle fiber contracts towards the origin. So, it moves anteriorly, and that causes the suspensory ligament to get loosened. So, when the suspensory ligament get loosened, what happened? The anterior convexity of the lens increases. But when this ciliaris muscle relaxes, it goes to the original position, and what happened? The suspensory ligament becomes stretched, and that flattens the anterior surface of the lens. Then you can see the action of the suspensory ligament here. This is flattening the lens, and this is loosening the suspensory ligament. The second picture is showing that the ciliaris muscle, when the contraction of the ciliaris muscle. So, when it contracts, what happened is suspensory ligament loosens and the anterior surface of the lens become convex. But in the first picture, the suspensory ligaments are stretched. That is because of the relax of ciliaris muscle. So, obviously the anterior surface is becoming flattened. Then the next part of middle court is the iris. It is a circular curtain with an opening in the center called the pupil. So, it can shrink and dilate based on the amount of light which is entering inside. It consists of two types of muscles, a sphincter papilla and dilator papilla. Now, sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae. It divides the anterior segment into an anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. It is highly pigmented and vascular. Here you can see the iris. This is our iris, and this iris having a central opening. That opening is called the pupil, and this iris consists of two types of muscles. One muscle is helping for its constriction, other is helping for the dilation. So, when a bright light entering inside, what happened is it automatically the sphincter pupillae contracts, and that shrinks the pupil. Only optimum amount of light entered into the eye. But in dim light, what happened is, for entering more amount of light inside, the dilator pupillae contracts. So, this dilator pupillae allows more light to enter inside because the pupil dilates. Then the third layer, which is the nervous cord, it consists of retina, which is thin layer, Anteriorly it is attached to the vitreous body and posteriorly it is attached to the choroid. In this picture you can see this blue colored area is the retina. In front it is in contact with the vitreous body that is filled inside the posterior segment, but behind it is in contact with the choroid. And this retina consists of a nervous part and a non-nervous part. From here, the part of the retina which is lying opposite to the iris and ciliary body is a non-nervous part. But the part of the retina which is lying opposite to the choroid is a nervous part. And from this retina only our optic nerve is arising. The cells of the retina finally gives the fibers of the optic nerve. And this optic nerve exiting out through posteromedial to the posterior pole of the eyeball. So, at the exit of this optic nerve, there is a disc-like area on the retina, and this disc-like area is called optic disc. The peculiarity with this optic disc is there is no rod cell or cone cell. So, this area is considered to be blind spot. Just lateral to this, we can see another depressed area here. See, here comes the optic disc and laterally a small depression is present on the retina, and this depression is yellow in color and is called macula lutea. The center of the macula lutea is further depressed and that is called fovea centralis. The fovea centralis is with more of cone cells. So, this area is considered to be having the maximum acuity of vision. This is the anterior pole of eyeball and this is the posterior pole of eyeball. See, this is anterior pole and this is posterior pole. This is about the retina. Then this retina is supplied by central artery of the retina, and the central artery is an end artery. End artery means this artery is not getting anastomosed with any other arteries in the body. So, once there is a block in the central artery, that results in the damage of retinal tissue. Then other features, apart from the layers, other features of eyeball is the presence of vitreous humor and aqueous humor. Vitreous humor is otherwise called vitreous body. It fills inside the posterior segment. Posterior segment is a large segment which is present behind the lens. This vitreous body is having the components of the vitreous body is mainly hyaluronic acid, and this vitreous body is considered to be an embryonic connective tissue. Posteriorly, this is in contact with the retina, but anteriorly it is separated by, or it is separated from the lens, and this vitreous body, the whole vitreous body is inside a hyaloid membrane or a hyaloid membrane. Then this is a lens. Human lens is biconvex, that means anteriorly and posteriorly also it is convex. The diameter of lens is called equator. Center of the anterior surface is called anterior pole. Center of the posterior surface is called posterior pole. Then this lens having the size of the lens is 1 centimeter. Then in front of the lens is the anterior segment. Anterior segment actually separated into two compartments by the presence of iris. We can move to another diagram. Here Okay, listen. This is the part which is present between cornea and the lens is a anterior segment. But this anterior segment is again divided into an anterior chamber that is present in front of the iris and a small posterior chamber present behind the iris. Understand? So this is a posterior chamber, this is anterior chamber. The ciliary body having the ciliary process, and the ciliary process has small capillaries, and from these capillaries of the ciliaris process the aqueous humor is producing. This aqueous humor from the ciliaris process enters into the posterior chamber. From there it flows through this chamber and exit through the pupil, reaches the anterior chamber. From here it moves to the angle between iris and the cornea, that is iridocorneal angle, and comes here and finally drains into the canal of Schlein. So any hindrance to the flow of this aqueous humor causes increased tension inside the eyeball, and that causes the cupping up of optic disc or pressure syndrome, and that condition is called glaucoma. Then other clinical conditions which is related with the eyeball are keratitis, that is an infection of the cornea, then scleritis, infection of the sclera, retinitis is the infection of retina, then corneal opacity. Cornea is actually a transparent structure, but in some conditions or when age increases the cornea may become opaque, and it is not that do not allow light rays to pass through, so that causes a blindness. Then conjunctivitis, you must have heard of this term, conjunctivitis, that is inflammation of the conjunctiva. So these are the things you have to study in eyeball. Eyeball is an important question also. You have to go through the PPT as well as video. Thank you.